Welcome back. This is my third transporter tutorial and my second transporter effect. This is probably one of my favorite effects. This is a burnout effect. Make it look like your body is being burned out by fire or plasma, something like that. Okay, and this is how you do that effect. First, we want to create a new composition. We're going to call that composition displace. To that, we're going to add a new solid. It's just layer, new, solid. And we're going to add fractal noise to that. That's effects, noise and grain, fractal noise. In our fractal noise, we want to click on this transform button, and when I click uniform scaling, we're going to set the uniform scaling, the height of it, to 200, so we're going to kind of stretch it. If we set this back down to its default at 100, you see you have this effect here. If I set it to 200, we're actually stretching it out just a little bit. Then we're going to set offset turbulence. Our offset turbulence controls the vertical movement of our fractal. And the other thing we're going to set is our evolution. Our evolution kind of sets our fractal doing this. If you're looking, you kind of see it moves around in circles like that. So it kind of controls more our horizontal aspects. Okay, so what we're going to do is at 0 seconds, 0 frames, we're going to set our offset turbulence to 450 by 200 and our evolution to 0. We're going to go out to 3 seconds, and we're going to set our evolution to 3 and our offset turbulence to 600. The next thing we want to do is we want to select our layer, and we want to grab these handles, and I'm going to drag it out and kind of stretch them like that. That just gives it more of a wispy sort of look. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new composition. We're going to call it fire. To that, we're going to add a new solid layer, and we're going to call it fire. The idea behind this is we want to animate a ellipse, so it's actually a big solid like that. Okay. Ellipse, by the way, is under Effects, Generate Ellipse. And to do this, we go to our 0 seconds, 0 frames. We're setting the width and the thickness to 0. Doesn't matter about the color. The center is just wherever you want the ellipse to start from. We're going to go out to 4 seconds here, and I'm going to set the width to 500 and the thickness to 500. So it just kind of encompasses this entire thing. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new composition, and I'm going to call it flames. I'm going to add another layer to that. We'll go ahead and call that fire again. We're going to add a ellipse effect to it as well. This one is very similar, except this one I want a ring to happen like this. So at 0 seconds, 0 frames, we're going to set the width to 0, the thickness to 0. We're going to go out to 4 seconds again, and we're going to set the width to 1,000, the height to 1,000, and the thickness to 110. This is also the layer where you can control what color you want your plasma to be. So let's go ahead and say we want a kind of a weird green color here. It's a little bit too bright, so I'm going to change that color, maybe a little bit of a bluish. Maybe a lot blue there. Let's try that. Now, if you notice here, between the fire layer and the flames layer, our flames layer and our fire layer are really close to each other. We kind of want that. We want our fire layer to kind of engulf the spot where our flame layer was. You see why that's important in this next one. So we're going to create a new composition. You can call yours just Burnout. I called mine Transporter 2 Burnout Part 1 because I had a couple different effects that I was trying here. The idea is the same. We want to take one of our shadows. See right here, here's one of my shadow cutouts that we made in our first tutorial. I'm going to set that to stencil alpha. So now it's going to contain the transparency info for the rest of the effects. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to add our flames layer. Our flames layer, I'm going to add displacement map and fast blur. Displacement map is under Effects, Distort Displacement Map, and Fast Blur is under Blur, Fast Blur right there. Now, what a displacement map does is it's going to take our nice little ring that we have cut out here. And it's going to have follow whatever my displacement map layer is. In this case, it's our fractal that we made. And I'm going to offset the horizontal displacement by 75 and the vertical displacement by 100. We're going to get this effect. So you see now it kind of follows the contours of our fractal a little bit. We went to that same frame. You can kind of see it right here. Okay. The next thing I do is I add, with my fast blur, is I'm going to set the blurriness to 6. Let me zoom in on this. And as you can see here, that just kind of takes that hard edge off. Makes it look a little bit more wispy, right? We could add the displace layer as well. And as you can see, that just adds a little bit of depth to it there. I personally didn't want to do that, but if you're going to do that, you want to set the the track mat of that layer to alpha. You can see if I set it to none, it actually fills that in right there, and that's not what I want to do. If you set it to inverse, every place where this flames layer is, it's not going to be. So we set it to alpha like that, and it follows pretty much the same contours as our flame layer. I also kind of wanted to show you guys, I duplicated my flames layer just by Control D and set everything else up the same, the displacement map and the fast blur, but I set the fast blur to 50. And what that does is it kind of gives you this halo effect. So as it starts to grow, we end up with this kind of glow that happens. Again, I decided I didn't really want that for this effect, but I thought I'd show it to you as an option as well. Next we do is we put our fire layer in, and our fire layer is set up exactly the same as our flames layer with the displace. I just don't have a blur on it at all. Now if we click our eyeball on our fire layer, what's going to happen is it's going to show you filling in. Remember, our fire layer just expands out, and it's going to show that entire fire layer. I don't want that. I'm going to go and keep that clicked off. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to add this layer here, which is just my my cutout that we made in our first tutorial, and I'm going to set it to alpha inverse. That makes this fire channel here, or fire layer, have our transparency information. Since I'm setting it to inverse, I'm saying wherever the fire is, I don't want this layer here. So you see, as the fire grows right there, it's taking away all this information. You can see the fire's there. If I set it to alpha matte instead of alpha inverted, you can see as the fire grows, I start to appear. So that could be kind of cool for a transporting in effect as well. So there we go. The next part we want to do is we want to bring all this information into our actual transport effect. Right there. Now if I take away these shadow layers here, you see that I kind of look pretty fake sitting here. There's no shadows, there's no information. Whoops. Okay. You can see my legs right here. It doesn't really look like I'm actually sitting on the couch. So I bring these shadow layers in, and these are simply reverse mats that I made in my first tutorial. Remember, I cut myself out right here, and I just kept that information. Thought I might need it later. So that has my shadow information all in it right here, and it also shows me sitting on the couch correctly and all that. My background layer here, you can see, is a little bit different. So we add our burnout layer, and I add these shadow layers. The only thing I animated here in my shadow layers is my opacity. In this first shadow layer, as my body starts to burn out, as it's right about here, I start a keyframe for my opacity. And by the time my body is burned out here, I have my shadows completely gone. If I would have been more accurate, I could have had my shadow start with a ring in it as well, and then had my fingers been the last, but it's really hard to see the shadow anyway, so I thought it wouldn't matter. Now I also notice here in my leg section, if that shadow leaves, it kind of makes this area here look fake all of a sudden. So I just added a small little mask layer there to keep that part of my shadow in. And I just have it set to add. And then right there I set my opacity, and by this point my opacity is gone. Okay, and that's how I did my burnout effect. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you at the next